Hola y bienvenidos a Sex in Spanglish, where we empower mujeres to get in touch with their bodies, own their pleasure, and where we discuss all the cochinadas our abuelas didn't tell us about. Hi all, my name is Ana. I'm a certified sex coach, proud Latina, and your go-to guide for all things sex. I'm here to help you break free from the cultural expectations that are holding you back from being the confident lover and mujer you've always dreamed of being. Let's be real. La comunidad latina doesn't talk about sex. Pero qué suerte tienes, because this Latina does, and I do it in Spanglish. It is my vision to have Latinas worldwide discussing sex with one another, just like we do with Chisme. Join me every week to hear me discuss todas las cochinadas sin vergüenza. Bienvenida, mi gente. Welcome to another episode of Sex in Spanglish. Today, I'm going to be soltando toda la sopa on the ultimate sex hack. This is literally the only hack you will need in your entire life. If you learn this hack, this is literally the only thing that you will need to experience the most amazing sex you've ever had. Allow me to explain. So I get asked constantly, almost on a daily basis, in my DMs, in person, when I'm guesting on a podcast, like from friends even, what are some tips and tricks to creating a better sex life, to experiencing better sex, enhancing the sex life? What is something that you can do today to have a better sex life? Now, I know I do the Hump Day Hot Tips on Wednesday, and that's just, some ideas that I like to throw out there. Sometimes in the moment, it can be really challenging to think of these things. But this episode is going to be about the ultimate hack. Literally, if you didn't do any of my Hump Day Hot Tips and you just did this thing right here, you would never need another Hump Day Hot Tip in your life. Now, of course, I would want you to still listen, but listen in, because this is definitely something you're going to want to hear. So, if you've been following me on social media, particularly on Instagram, and if you're not, definitely should go follow at Sex in Spanglish. But if you've been following me and you've been seeing my reels that I've been posting, the other day I posted a reel about how it isn't the dick that is creating pleasure for you. It's your brain. And some people were like, well, yeah, it's the emotional connection. You really like this person. And yes, but that's not what I was getting at. It's not the other person that's creating the pleasure for you. No one can create pleasure for another person. Now, I know this can be kind of confusing because you're like, well, I like getting head, right? Or like my man likes getting head, or like whatever it is, right? And yeah, that sensation feels good. But if you think about it, if your man is eating you out, there are some times that it doesn't feel as good, even if he's doing the exact same thing that he did yesterday. And why is that? It's because of you and what you're thinking, what's going on in your head, right? Maybe you're pissed at him. Maybe this is like makeup sex, right? He's trying to make up for something that he fucked up for. Or you're thinking about like, damn, like I got to hurry up and orgasm because the kids are going to be home in a minute. Or, oh man, I still got to cook dinner. Or maybe dinner's in the oven, right? So you're really trying to hurry. Or whatever it is, right? Oh, I have an essay due this weekend. Or, the million things that we have on our to-do lists. So your mind isn't there in the moment. So you're stressed, right? Because you're thinking all of these thoughts about your to-do list and all these other things, right? Someone might come in. So your body's almost in this fight or flight response because you're experiencing like this anxiety, right? And then your body has all these fire alarms going off like, oh shit, we're feeling anxiety. That means something's going wrong. When in reality, all you're doing is worrying about your to-do list. Nothing's necessarily wrong. But your body is trying to save you. Your body's like, well, we got to run from this lion. Like, shows on, right? Like fight or flight, like let's go, right? So your body's trying to save you from all these thoughts that you're having, all this worry that you're having, because it thinks that something is wrong. It doesn't know any better. And so, of course, you're not going to be turned on because your body's like, bitch, we're trying to fucking run from a lion. Why are you having sex right now? Like, it's time to go, right? So, bringing it back to the mind. If you are thinking thoughts of like, damn, this feels good. This is amazing. This is the best he's ever been. How do you feel? Amazing. It feels like it's the best it's ever been, right? So the idea is that the feeling in the body comes after the thought. It's not vice versa. It's not you have the feeling and then you have the thought like, oh, this does feel good. No, you have the thought that this is amazing, that, you love him so much, or whatever it is, you're really connected to him, whatever it is. It doesn't, any thought, you could try on any thought. It doesn't matter. There's no specific thought that you have to think. As long as that thought feels good for you and allows your body to relax enough to feel pleasure, to feel the touch that is happening. Because I can guarantee you that more often than not, and specifically if you're having sex with the same partner over and over, there's usually some type of monotony that's going on, right? It's usually kind of the same. There's certain touches that they do. They don't change it up too much. We get in these ruts, or we get used to doing the same thing over and over. So you can have the same touch 5 days in a row, same exact touch down to like the last, centimeter on your body, whatever. But if you have different thoughts each of those 5 days, those same exact touches are going to feel different. Whether or not it is with the same person or not, it is all about your thoughts. Now, I had a couple people message me, and I think even comment about like dick size, right? Like, oh, well, like I love, a good sized dick and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's fine. You are allowed to have preferences. That doesn't mean that you have to force yourself to like something that you just don't like. But if you're choosing to be with someone that maybe doesn't have like, the dick size that you want, then wouldn't you want to enjoy having sex with them? Like, you can decide if you're going to have good sex or not. So maybe you want to wait to have sex until you find a person that, I don't know, has like an 8-inch dick or something. I don't fucking know. That's up to you, right? That is totally your decision. I'm not, telling you, no, don't do that. That's stupid. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. But the thing is that you're associating the dick size with how good it feels. And that's not how it works. You may prefer larger size dicks, and that is totally fine. But recognize that you're giving someone else credit for something that you're doing. That's like you publishing a novel and then being like, oh yeah, my best friend wrote it. Why the fuck would you do that? That makes no sense. So the point of this rant is that I want y'all to start giving yourself credit for the pleasure that you receive during sex, because no one else is doing that but you. You are the one that is giving yourself pleasure. Maybe there's being a dick inserted in you, some fingers, a tongue, toy, whatever, by someone else. That's fine and dandy. But your brain, is allowing your body to experience pleasure. No one else can do that for you. It's literally not possible. So stop giving 8-incher over there credit for something that you're fucking doing. Men get enough credit for enough shit. So stop giving other people credit for shit that you're fucking doing. Stop it. Now, after my rant is over, but going back to the main point, the ultimate hack, what we're really talking about here. is that our brain creates pleasure. Nothing else. Our brain, our mind, our thoughts, they are what creates pleasure. We have thoughts that create pleasure, the experience of pleasure in our bodies. And then that turns into a great sex session, or even pleasure outside of sex. If we stop talking about sex for a second, pleasure can be in anything, and pleasure in reading a good book and watching a novela and, doing whatever, having a conversation with a friend. Those things can also be pleasurable. So if you allow yourself to experience pleasure in things outside of the bedroom, why are you limiting yourself in the bedroom when it comes to sex, when it comes to self-pleasure? Your brain is what creates pleasure, no one else. So start giving yourself credit. Moving on to la cochinada del día. Today's cochinada is that men inherently want more sex than women. This is so false. Men have more testosterone than women. That is, typical, right? However, that doesn't necessarily mean that they want sex more than their female counterparts. I also want to throw in a footnote here that I am saying men and women, but I do recognize that there are more than two genders. Now, that is a very in-depth topic, and that's not exactly the point of this little segment. So I definitely want to spend an episode talking about gender and the difference between gender and sexuality. But for now, I just want to throw that footnote in there for anyone listening. I do recognize that there are more than two types of genders and even sexes. So with that being said, going back to the common misconception that men want sex more than women or have higher sex drives than women, that is not necessarily true. If you listen to the beginning of this episode, you'll know that I said that what creates pleasure in the human body is the brain, which means your thoughts are creating pleasure in your body, not your sex and not your gender. So if you are a person that thinks you simply have a higher sex drive because you're supposed to, because society tells you that you're supposed to, then you might have a higher sex drive. But if you don't, you're probably going to feel some shame in there because you're supposed to, right? There's this expectation that you do and you don't. And this also happens that if you're expected to have a low sex drive, speaking to the women here, right? You're expected to have a low sex drive because you're a woman. And then you feel shameful if you have a higher sex drive. Why? Because society tells you that you're not supposed to. This has nothing to do with your sex or your gender, but society tells you that it does. A woman is supposed to check off these certain boxes, and men as well, right? But there's these expectations that are put on us, and then we put those same expectations on ourselves, and then wonder why we can't feel pleasure or experience pleasure, especially when it comes to sex. So again, our mind is what creates the experience of pleasure in our bodies. Not our sex, not our gender, not anything else. If this still is a struggle for you after you listen to this a couple times, definitely reach out and book a quickie. The link is in the show notes. $69 for 45 minutes. Moving on to Ask a Future Doctora. I actually get this question a lot, so I decided to go ahead and answer it on today's episode. The question is, am I normal? Now, I receive this question in a multitude of ways. So sometimes it comes off as, a specific subject or the amount of sex or, this and that. And all these questions are essentially asking the same thing. Am I normal? Are we as a couple normal, right? Are my urges normal? And the thing is that I don't necessarily have an answer for you because you are with yourself 24/7. So I kind of want to answer this question with a question. Like, I don't know. Are you? Like, are you following your normal routine, your normal functioning, your normal, bodily functions? And then they kind of look at me like I'm weird, like you're not going to answer my question. But the thing is, I don't know what is normal for you because I am not around you 24/7. Now, I ask this also, so I ask, like, I don't know, are you? In response to this question, because typically when someone is asking me if they're normal, they are looking for validation. They are seeking validation, whether they think they are or not. They're typically seeking validation. They want to hear a professional, in this case myself, to say, no, you're totally fine. Everything's great, right? But what if you just decided to think that whatever you do sexually, whatever your preferences are normal? So at the beginning of the episode, I talked about how pleasure is created in our brain. The interesting thing is that other emotions, and this is all emotions. So if we want to talk about, quote unquote, positive emotions, right? Happy, excitement, pleasure, and even negative emotions, sadness, anxiety, anger. Those are all created by thoughts that happen in our brain. So what if you just decided to think that whatever you do is normal? What would that look like? And now, there are, typical functions. I like using typical versus normal because I think that normal is more of like a social standard. So if what is typical or normal for your body, like is in bodily functions, if your normal isn't happening, that's how you tell that something's wrong. But when you're talking about like sexual preferences or how often you have sex or how you have sex, if you're asking me if that is normal, I'm going to ask you, is it? Because I don't know. You get to decide. And if you decide that it's normal, whatever the amount is that you're having, say you're having sex once every other week, and you think that that's normal, but you want to have more, that's okay too. You get to decide. That is the great thing about the mind. You get to decide. And you can also decide without giving a fuck what anybody else thinks. It's totally your decision. So just like you're going to start taking credit for your pleasure, start taking responsibility for your own thoughts. And if you need some help, be sure to book a quickie call. The link is in my show notes. If you'd like a question answered on the podcast, send me an email at sexandspanglish@gmail.com. And if you like what you heard today and are interested in getting a personalized pleasure plan, head to the show notes to get access to my calendar. As a Latino certified sex coach, I help you navigate your culture and your sexuality sin vergüenza. You won't find this anywhere else. Join me every week to hear me talk about orgasms, STIs, birth control, and all the other cochinadas your abuela didn't tell you about. Until then, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Sex and Spanglish for weekly topics and updates. And if you want chisme before anyone else and early access to freebies, be sure to sign up for my email list. Simply head to my Linktree located in the bio on my Instagram and click on Email Me the Chisme. Instagram is where you'll find me discussing sex and my other passions, food, social justice, y Latinidad. It's also where you can access my Facebook and TikTok accounts. Make sure to follow me and leave me a comment on my social media platforms to let me know you heard this. Espero verlas pronto!